Это у меня на самом деле вообще первый опыт.
Well, actually, this is my first time when I'm a co-presenter with Mariya. We've been working with Mariya for a very long time together, so we're a good team, and I really hope that we will deliver a presentation as a team. But if something bad happens, sorry. Well, I hope that you will see a QR code on the screen as soon as it appears. Scan it, save it. We are at the cybersecurity conference, so it will be safe to use it. And you can submit your questions in the chat box. Just select the Meteor conference hall. And if there are too many questions, we'll be happy to take them offline after the presentation. Right, without further ado, I hope we can start the presentation. Just a brief intro. Mariya and I will brief you on how much safe development costs and how to calculate the costs. A couple of years back, back in 2022, I delivered the presentation at one of the conferences, and one of the questions was how do you calculate the time to market, the cost, and so on and so forth. And I answered that in the future, we'll be happy to share the facts and figures with you. And now, having acquired all the competences and driving all the CFOs nuts, we managed to prepare a PPT stack that we'll be happy to share with you. And if there are any questions or ideas, we'll be happy to discuss them. We're looking forward to any feedback. My name is Svetlana. I'm responsible for safe development processes. This is just part of my job, but application security in positive technologies is something that I specialize in. And Mariya is responsible for the architecture and the analysis of the customer project. So how much it costs and how come you have to do it this way is something that Mariya specializes in. Right. The key message that I want to drive home is it possible to make on deploying something pertaining to security? Well, it's not a myth. I'll try to alleviate the myth and I'll try to explain why I think so. Right. And this is another slide that I have to cover. Let me go at a tangent here and mention something. We are all smart people in this room, and we all realize that we need the security to make sure that we are not penetrated, so that nothing bad happens to the company, so that the regulators will not punish us, so that we mitigate the risks, and so on and so forth. However, if you take a look at the security in terms of app development, you'll see that everything is linked with the digitalization, automation, and the fact that we accelerate our processes. So let me give you some historical data. Adizes is a great guy who talks about the life cycle of the company, the way it progresses, and so on and so forth. And since we specialize in development, we always want to be stable so that our business does not get shut down, so that we create some value at any given time. And safe development helps you do that because automation and automatic projects help you make money on reducing the labor costs, mitigating some categories of risks, and through revising the approach, the overall approach to what is happening in the safe development cycle. The application security financial basis is something that I will touch upon because we're here to talk about the money, and I'll share with you facts and figures and specific examples so that you will be able to calculate the profitability for your own company, whether it makes sense or it doesn't make sense, so that you better understand how to progress looking forward. That's us. I'm not an economist by background. Mariya is an economist by background. Well, I haven't been working as an economist for a very long time. But nevertheless, we'll try to share our experience with you. Just a funny anecdote, if I may. We gained much experience during our cybersecurity careers, and we realized that deployment on any practice such as application security or cybersecurity, AppSec is something that I will focus on, is cool, is awesome, is a must, but it's always, these stories always lack details or some or window dressing. But if you start saying that it's profitable, it's a must, or it's not profitable, but it's still a must, then it becomes a pretty picture that you can present to anyone. I had a very interesting case recently. We attended a meeting, and a colleague of mine is in this room. She accompanied me on this business trip, and the CISO of a partner company asked us, how come you didn't tell me that you will be talking about the money? I would have invited the CFO. This is the first time people are telling me that this is profitable and they back it up with figures. That's cool. I want to learn more. And that's why we came up with this presentation in the first place. We have an open source portal. That's my Telegram channel that I advertise everywhere. So please subscribe. And this is one of the open source projects that we run. Mariya and other guys contribute a lot to this project. It's totally free of charge. You can download it, you can fork it, or someone copied and pasted it in the GitHub. Spread these practices. We don't care the way you're going to do that. Just make sure that you do. And I believe we can start the presentation without further ado. I will interrupt Mariya from time to time, so just bear with me. How all the development stages are linked. Well, I'm not talking about safe development, just about development per se. At each stage, we have to calculate whether it slows down or improves the strategic plan of the company. We use ROI, return on investments, and it's great if you can break it down and calculate elements for different stages. For instance, how much does the coding stage cost, the architecture analysis stage cost, and so on and so forth. The same holds true for safe development, but we're going to use some additional coefficients or indices. We coined the term of ROSI. It's not widely popular in the world, but back in 2022, we coined the term of return on safe application development. Things that you spend, you will get back later on. So the question is, what are you going to do with the profit that you will get? And it's great to be able to track the costs and profits. And we can show the customers that the project was profitable, that it helped with ensuring the security, and so on. I cannot say that I saw some extreme examples, but the most important thing is to use a pre-agreed upon pipeline to identify the break-even point, and CFOs would appreciate that. Tomorrow night, we will have a separate presentation on that, and we'll give you more details on how to present all of that to the CFOs. As for the ROSI, I'm going to use this term, if I may. Business has to finance your projects, period. We spend money on the technologies. Unless we invested in the R&D, we wouldn't be standing here right now, and our department wouldn't exist. So it's about investing into technologies, into app development, and so on and so forth. This is a must to create something and launch it in the market. We're talking about the human resources, employees, out staff, overtime of your designers who had to work overtime. These are the processes that you need. For instance, I don't know, simple tools to come up with the mind maps. This is a separate cost line in my case. OS or back office, the more people you have in a company, the larger HR department you need, and so on and so forth. Wear and tear, depreciation. You can screen. You can take a photo of this screen. These are the mandatory costs, and I don't think you can save on any of the 4 bullets or buckets listed here, or you can, but it would affect the quality or would result in greater costs in other domains. For instance, you can buy an open source tool and use a 10 people team, or you can buy a vendor tool and a tool from a vendor and have just one person on your staff, one designer on your staff. Now I'm going to pass on the floor to Mariya. But I'm not leaving you. I'll stay here. Well, if we roll out safe development, then we incur more costs. If we don't, then we might incur costs later. So at the present time, we still incur costs to prevent vulnerabilities during the operation stage or PCE stage. And vulnerabilities primarily impact the developers later. It's worthwhile mentioning that in the AppSec, the following calculations are true. Vulnerabilities control at a follow-up stage will cost more. This is just common sense. And just recently, I read a Google research report which stated that at the release stage, vulnerability control might cost 100 times more. And I guess this is true for the car industry. If they have to recall premium cars, it costs a lot. However, if you take an average company and an average index, that would be 2 times higher cost or somewhere around it. And this is true for high-risk industries and the companies that develop stuff for their in-house use. There is a rollbar study showing that 44% of the developers' time is spent on vulnerabilities control, and there is a range. If you trust that your developers come up with safe code, then in your case it's going to be 25%. If your developers do not do that, then it would probably be 75%. Cisco just recently published the AppSec Dynamics report, and their figure was 57%. Of the time of the developers spent on vulnerabilities control. So at the very least, 25% of the developers' time is spent on vulnerabilities identified at the previous stage. So if you identify a vulnerability at the product stage, deployment stage, then it's going to be expensive. The Forrester report is also interesting. The processes that you roll out as safe development practices result in improving the KPIs by 100%. And actually, this is an automation process. In our case, we're talking about software development process, and there are economic formulas that underlie this process to calculate the ROI, return on investments. And this slide clearly shows that in addition to that, we know that the costs get inflated at every follow-up stage. We know how much time is spent by the developers. It would be great if we could use specific performance indicators or metrics. And Clarity shows that if we use open source software, 0.5 errors per one line of code. If you use just proprietary software, then it's 0.64 errors per one line of code. But on average, it's one error per
Нет.
1,000 lines
На самом деле,
of
подобные
code.
исследования, мне кажется, у кого только их
As
нету.
for the safe code,
Мы
well,
заметили.
different studies were run. On average, safe code will deliver a presentation on the density of vulnerabilities. And what they are saying is that one open source component that you use in your software stands for 3 errors. In an average project, we have about 400 open source components, so it's easy to calculate the number of errors. Another important thing that you have to take in mind is the expected risk density, the number of vulnerabilities per 100 lines of code. This is the indicator that we should strive to achieve to ensure safe development. These are the Forrester performance indicators, but you can use your own indicators. For instance, if your development teams are small, then you can reduce these indicators considerably. If your development teams are large, then the upper threshold will probably be true for you. At the development stage, if you identify the vulnerabilities at the development stage, well, it costs less. The shift left is offset. And everything I mentioned before is linked to the cost per one developer. Well, Mariya, let me add to that. These are positive statistics. I love it, because if you can Google it, the very first hyperlink you will get is this. Your developers might cost a lot or just a bit. And, one of the developers complained to me that the Rusty guy's salaries were boosted considerably, and he started listing up these salaries. And there were ladies in the elevator with us. I don't know what companies they work for. They were extremely upset. So what I'm saying is that you should use your average salaries, your in-house average salaries. But overall, we're going to be using these figures that we Googled in terms of salaries for developers. By the way, if you have access to the previous data, if you know what the vulnerabilities density is, you can scan it, you can get the statistics, and then you can use it. The same holds true for this particular slide. If you can get statistics on average salaries from your economists, especially those who deal with vulnerabilities control, fine, that would be even better. By the way, this is an average salary, but VAT and insurance payouts are not included, so you have to add 43% more on top of that. So at this particular stage, we can clearly see the defect reshuffle, and given the developer's salary, the density of vulnerabilities, and the coefficient, you can calculate the financial results. So, in fact, it's worth clarifying that the vulnerabilities identified at the planning stage might hurt a lot. Sometimes they might result in shutting down the project altogether. Therefore, processes rollout is of utmost importance. So, what we finally get to is the defect reshuffling based on the indicators that I already touched upon, the risk density and the expected, the desirable risk densities. So the PSI stage features everything linked to the vulnerabilities and the product deployment stage. By the way, I totally missed the following thing. Given the salaries of the developers, a vulnerability costs 1,500 at the planning stage. At the release stage, we multiply it by 2, so it's 50,000 per error. As for the redistribution, as you can see, the vulnerabilities are redistributed, and every year the cost of identified vulnerabilities are reduced by shifting them to the left. And 80% of the vulnerabilities have been shifted to the left, as you can see, and part of the cost is reduced by eliminating the debt that we incurred before. So this is a breakdown by years depending on the maturity of the teams and the number of the teams that are engaged in the safe development. Well, this diagram is a great illustration of everything I just mentioned. Let me focus on the following. Things that we are developing or things that are tested by the users. User testing is the term Mariya has used. So for the third year in a row, it's a target that we've been striving to achieve. And I don't think, you would argue that it takes at least that time. Ideally, no bugs, no vulnerabilities, no errors should be in the code at the release stage. This is an ideal situation, but this is something that we're striving to achieve. During year 3, we want to have the following distribution. 70% of the bugs would be identified with the help of the application security tools. And then we would just release some small patches to eliminate the bugs. Another important thing to point out is that at the PSI stage, there are a minimal number of bugs. So ultimately what we get, let's say we have 150 development engineers, let's say they generate 15,000 lines of code, and the AppSec deployment period is 3 years. So it's a small company, but even here you can try it. You can try this approach. And it's important to know that these are the minimal indicators applied here. Based on the experience that we have gained while running this study, I can tell you that these figures will be way higher. So let's go back to college. Mariya will cover these facts and figures. They are sad. That's why I'm so downwind. Anyway, the time to market economic benefit is shown here. This is a sum total of how much we're going to save on bug control, the effectiveness of the development process, because like I said, the deployment, safe development deployment process is about automation of software development as a process. And some of the vulnerabilities are eliminated altogether. As for the cost of safe development, we're talking about licenses, labor costs, and everything Svetlana demonstrated to you in a slide showing the business costs incurred. Following that, what I have here are simple economic indicators. For instance, the NPV is just 20%, the duration is 2 years. These are standard economics. So we see that the project is going to be profitable even on year 1. On year 2, it goes down, but the scope for the teams is going to be larger during the second year of the project. Well, let's follow the following logic. We're not trying to maximize our efforts for year one. The bulk of the workload, unfortunately, we're on air, so I cannot say certain things, but first we prepare our staff, and then we start capitalizing on their brain power, and that happens in year two, when everyone is mentally ready. Stage one is used as a trial period, and overall, teams become mature, they become more prepared to scale up their development, and that's why we see exponential growth during year two. That's why during year two, your financial indicators will go down, but you will still be in the green zone, which is good. Well, it's not a given, but if you have more than 60 guys in your development team, then the financial indicators will go down because the platform rollout is going to be stage by stage. As for the conclusions, I don't know how to draw conclusions. I'm not good at it. We try to save as much time for the Q&A as possible so that we could discuss things with you. But as for the takeaways, I would share with you the following pieces of advice. What Mariya demonstrated, these are scary figures, and I'm not good at dealing with figures. It's difficult for me to calculate them, at least mentally wise. But if you roll out projects like that all the time, you have to calculate the costs for the customers. Meteor session is devoted to managing the cybersecurity properly, and you have to understand how profitable the projects are for you, whether you chose the right vendor. For instance, if a contractor tells you need this, this, and that, and you will be 100% protected against all the cyber threats, the main question that you should ask yourself, why would you need that if it doesn't make any sense economically wise, if it's not cost efficient? The DevSecOps is about common sense. Our goal is to make sure that the company develops in the future, and sometimes it's easier to control risks rather than eliminate them altogether, because eliminating them might be too expensive. And unless you do these calculations, you won't be able to understand what risks may be ignored. After the calculations, you might decide that secure by design is the only thing that you need, and a couple of additional tools is all you need, and all the extras are not going to make any sense for you. So my question for you is as follows. I guess we need to publish an article on how to do all these calculations. If you want us to do that, please give a round of applause to Mariya for the work done. Well, I guess we'll publish an article and post it in Orda. Go ahead. I'll act as a facilitator and I will readdress the questions to you. There are a couple of questions here in the chat box. How do you calculate the money saved on the vulnerabilities identified at the planning stage? How do you keep statistics, or how do you identify the vulnerabilities in the architecture? What's the multiplier? Because we don't. Well, at the planning stage, like I said, it costs almost zero if you identify it. However, if you identify the bug later on, then you use coefficients that I already demonstrated in the PPT stack. You can use your own in-house data, your in-house indicators. If you have rolled out tools, then you can use the metrics built into those tools, for instance, the risk density. And you can also specify what the vulnerability was, at what stage it was identified, and so on and so forth. So just come up with your own formulas and use them for calculations. For instance, you eliminated this rather bug at this stage, and it cost us that much. You can use it as a point to drive the message home, to tell them that you save the money. And this is another important factor showing that a properly implemented process eliminates such bugs looking forward down the line.
Видимо, ребята уже этим занимались, а может быть просто...
The second question comes from the guys who already had some experience in it. Let's say we rolled out the AppSec. We have lots of tools and processes. We have consulting, but vulnerabilities will still be identified either independently or by bug bounty hunters or attackers, villains. How do we calculate the real cost, and how do we subtract the AppSec costs? Vulnerabilities and bugs will still be identified. I already demonstrated to you the risk, the expected, the desired risk density. What you should try to do is avoid the bugs and vulnerabilities that you can avoid. You already spend the money, because the companies who did not roll out all these tools will spend more time on eliminating these bugs and vulnerabilities. And according to the statistics that I shared with you,
в любом случае, как бы нет нулевого, того самого состояния, в котором у нас нет уязвимостей, но есть то состояние, в котором мы не тратим вот эти самые...
You never have zero vulnerabilities, but you don't want to spend 44% or 57% or 25% of the time of your developers on vulnerabilities control. They would better spend this time on writing more code. We have exhausted the questions from the chat box. You can also address your questions to us orally. We'll be happy to discuss them with you. After the short intro, I listened to Mariya very attentively, and I couldn't help noticing that she used the term bugs, imperfections, and so on and so forth. And it's another key message that I want to drive home. Safe development or app security is a quality indicator. So let's develop high quality products that would make money for us. Thank you so much for your attention.